So let's begin. In this short module, we explain one question clearly. What is grand corruption? And why is it different from everyday bribery? So what is the everyday picture? Most people picture corruption like this. They see it as petty corruption. A small payment to speed up a service, avoid a delay, or get something you're already entitled to. Grand corruption is different. Transparency International describes grand corruption as the abuse of high-level power that benefits the few at the expense of the many. It's often organised and causes significant harm to the average person. Remember this key phrase: high-level power, a few benefit, the many pay the price. It's not just about more money, it's system shaping. The key difference is not only the amount of money, the real difference is the damage to the system. Grand corruption reshapes rules, institutions, budgets, and enforcement priorities. It can change who gets contracts and who gets regulated, who gets investigated, and who gets protected. There are actually key strategic levers that drive grand corruption. Grand corruption is strategic because it targets the big levers of power and money. First of all is budgets. Who controls public money? Second is procurement. Who wins contracts? Third is state-owned enterprises, where big money and influence concentrate. 4 is appointments. Who leads oversight bodies and enforcement? And 5th comes enforcement. What cases move and what cases disappear. So why does grand corruption become organised? It's about the corrupt being protected. Grand corruption often becomes organised because it depends on protection at senior levels. The people involved don't just take value. They work to reduce the transparency and weaken oversight and avoid consequences. Let's look at a practical test. It's the concept of one bad apple versus the whole structure. If one person leaves office, does the system correct itself? If the answer is yes, it may just be an individual problem. But if the answer is no, if the incentives, controls, and enforcement are still compromised, then it's structural. That's the risk profile of grand corruption. Let's look at these 2 scenarios and determine which one is grand corruption. Scenario A, a clerk asks for cash to speed up a routine document. Scenario B, a senior leader directs a major contract to a favoured company where oversight is bypassed and auditors are replaced. Which scenario is more consistent with grand corruption and why? Pause for 3 seconds and decide. The stronger example of grand corruption is scenario B. Why? Because it uses high-level power to shape procurement and oversight. It makes corruption repeatable and harder to challenge, because the rules and the referees are being controlled. So what does grand corruption include? Well, grand corruption is not just bribery. It can include embezzlement of public funds, illicit enrichment, capture of institutions, money laundering to hide proceeds, and impunity. This is where powerful people avoid consequences. The common thread is senior power being abused and the public paying the cost.
Let's look for some red flags or indicators of grand corruption. These are common red flags you can recognise anywhere. 1. Big decisions with little transparency. 2. Restricted tenders and thin procurement records. 3. Appointments used to neutralise oversight, like audit and prosecution.
4. Repeat audit findings with no corrective action. And 5. Selective enforcement, where outsiders get punished, but the insiders get protected. Congratulations! That's a wrap on our first module. Our key takeaway is that grand corruption is not just more corruption. It actually reshapes the system and it protects itself through compromised oversight and selective enforcement. Now let's test our knowledge with some simple true and false questions before we move to the next module.